Every map is remembered for something. Whether that something is good or bad, well, that just depends on which one. Every map has offered something to the zombies community, even the bad ones, but there's only one that I remember for its amazing Easter egg hunt, the Eisendrache. Every zombies map releases in the same way. The map drops, the community plays it, and we set out to discover every new bit of storyline and every new gameplay feature. But more importantly, the second the map becomes available to the public, the main Easter egg hunt is on. Every map that has ever had a main Easter egg hunt has been special in its own way, but I believe there was never a more exciting time than watching the Easter egg hunt for this map. After all, this Easter egg was important. This was the first DLC map for Black Ops 3, and this means it was crucial that the map performs well on any front, whether that be gameplay, storyline, or you guessed it, the main Easter egg. Because one bad DLC map, especially if it's the first one in the DLC season, can be the deciding factor on whether or not the game will succeed later down the road. Because if you screw it up on your first map, many people will give up on the game then and there, but thankfully, this was not the case. The Eisendrache is considered by many to be the greatest DLC one, if not the greatest map in zombies history, and this is due to many things. The map was a return to the Ether storyline and our four main heroes that in many ways the Giant and Shadows of Evil weren't. We, after 3 years of waiting, were finally getting to see our characters in a new environment that wasn't a remake, as well as the atmosphere of this mysterious castle under Group 935's control was heavily linked to maps that players adore from the past, such as Moon, Mob of the Dead, and Origins. So this only fueled player interest in the story and where the Easter egg would go. Many people at the time were speculating a Moon remake and even wondered if we would make a trip to the moon during this Easter egg, as the map's objective was made very clear early on that Dempsey 1.0 was bound for the moon on a rocket, and it was our mission to bring him back to Earth before he reached Dr. Groff on Griffin Station. I think it's worth mentioning as well that this Easter egg was exciting to watch because this really was the beginning of the streaming era. Not to say nobody streamed games before this, but this was around the time where platforms like Twitch were really starting to take a more mainstream place in the world of content creation. So I would say streaming was getting really big, not that it just started. So for me at least, this was the first time I watched an Easter egg hunt with thousands of other people, and that makes it only more exciting when you and thousands of others are hyped out of your minds. I was ready to see what secrets this map would hold, as I was an Xbox player, so I didn't get the map for a whole other month. So the pieces were laid out by Treyarch, and it would soon be time for the map's release, and the hunt would begin. Disclaimer: any gameplay from other YouTubers will be credited and their channel links will be in the description. Also, when I show a specific YouTuber or player complete a step or acquire a bow, this does not imply they're the first player to discover this step or acquire said bow. This is only being used as a visual example of the community and how they all participated in this hunt. Some YouTubers such as NoJ456 will have more screen time in this video, as he has the best documentation of the events of this Easter egg hunt that I could find on YouTube, with all his Easter egg hunt streams uploaded on his channel. Again, this does not imply he or anyone else discovered any of these steps first. It is strictly visual unless stated otherwise. Anyways, back to the video. Eisendrache is one of those Easter eggs that requires players to have a certain amount of gameplay features unlocked in game before they can even begin the actual main Easter egg. So day one of this map was filled with map exploration and acquiring tools necessary to begin the main quest. Unless you went to an early capture event at Treyarch Studios, this was the first time a large majority of the community was loading into the map, and the first day was filled with the small things. Players found all the shield parts, players found out how to turn on the power, players found out how to activate Pack-a-Punch, and players spent their time just getting used to how the map played. New features like the Wonder Spheres were quickly utilized to travel around the map, and I'd say the first major development of day one was unlocking the Wrath of the Ancients. Most of the community figured this out pretty quickly, as it was practically identical to the Hell's Retriever quest in Mob of the Dead. But to put it simply, you would kill zombies in front of 3 dragon statues around the map, they would come to life and eat zombies until they were full, and once they were, the weapon would appear in its place on the map. This wasn't hard for the community to figure out. As I said earlier, it was practically identical to the Mob of the Dead Hound step, and it wasn't hard to find these 3 giant dragon statues on the walls around the map. So now players had the Wonder Weapon, and it would keep them busy for most of the day. This bow and arrow was a base weapon, and throughout the day, the community quickly learned of 4 hidden upgrade quests around the map that would transform this bow into something completely different. There were 4 different bow upgrades discovered around the map that you could pick up and begin the upgrade process for the Wrath of the Ancients. Take your pick of lightning, wolf, void, and fire. 4 different elemental wonder weapons. Seems familiar, doesn't it? Each quest came in the form of a pickup that players discovered pretty quickly, as 2 of the 4 quests were acquired by just shooting the wall with the Wrath of the Ancients in 2 different locations. The other 2 not as simple, but still not too hard. One was as simple as shooting a weather vane, while the other was holding X or square on 4 different paintings that were scattered across the map in the correct order. So now that players had access to all 4 bow upgrade quests, here's where things started to get a little messy. Sure, the community had all 4 bow quests, but they weren't sure how they worked yet. Players like Noah J kept swapping quests to try to figure out what step was for which bow, as they by this point had a lot of random steps from many different things around the map discovered, and they weren't sure which thread to follow. It appeared that each upgrade quest was a 4-step process, so that meant there were at least 16 different steps to discover to finish every bow upgrade. So it was a matter of finding out which steps were for which upgrade, and what order these steps needed to go in to finish each one. This happens every Easter egg hunt. Players inevitably find many side Easter egg quests that will eventually lead to nothing of significance, but as they are doing them, they don't know that, as the map is brand new, so how could they? A good example of this is the Clock Tower Easter egg, where you could teleport and acquire a plunger melee weapon. As we now know, this plunger is not required for the main Easter egg, but players at the time could not have been sure of this, so every game they got the plunger, just in case. Same thing happened with each bow upgrade. Players would discover a step for the lightning bow, then they might see someone else in the community had discovered a new, different step, and they would go pursue that rather than stick on their current path. So building the bows was a lot of trial and error. Players would try doing something with the void bow quest, and if it didn't work, then they would try the exact same thing but with a different bow quest. But eventually, the community got each bow done. I don't want to spend time explaining how to make each bow, as that would just take too long, but to sum it up, it was a variety of different mechanics for each upgrade quest, including but not limited to target practice, puzzle solving, scavenger hunts, soul collecting, more target practice, wall running, lots of soul collecting, and more target practice. Though I am kinda glossing over this part of the map's Easter egg hunt, I just want to stress how well these bow upgrades were integrated into the map and just overall feel perfect, as this is the way for Eisendrache. It has, in my opinion, some of the best, if not the best map flow in all of Zombies, but more on that later. These bow upgrades mostly took up the player's time during day 1, as there were a lot of steps, but it was so exciting to watch. Imagine you're watching your favorite streamer and he or she finds out how to fill the lightning bow or any other bow first in the world. I remember seeing these bows shot for the first time, and it was just jaw-dropping to see how powerful they were. It showed that Treyarch meant business with this map, and oh my goodness, we were in for the hunt of a lifetime. Now, to close out day 1, I need to talk about one more thing that players discovered that was essential for the Easter egg hunt to continue. Day 1 wasn't as much the actual hunt, but more a day of discovering tools that would need to be used for Easter egg steps later down the road. The bows were needed for later steps during the Easter egg, and so were the Ragnarok DG4s. This was Eisendrache's specialist weapon. Treyarch took the gravity spikes from multiplayer and gave them a few new tweaks and features, and bam, you had a pretty sick zombie slaying specialist weapon. To acquire it, you had to find all 3 of its parts. The first 2 were found pretty quickly, as all you had to do was kill a Panzer for one and use the death ray and wonder spheres for the other. But the third one took some more time to discover, as it was less obvious. Basically, you would go down to the rocket test, pull a switch when the rocket test started, and another when the rocket test was done, and the third part would spawn in the teleporter. All that was left to do now was go to a buildable bench and build it. The DG4s are really good and were essential for the Easter egg, as I said, and we'll get to that. So this kind of ended off day 1 as far as my knowledge goes, and day 2 would begin. The next part of this hunt took a bit of a turn. The community had all 4 bows, and the community had the DG4s, so what they found next was a little strange. Players found that you could change the time on the clock tower, and if you managed to land the clock's hands on 9:35, a new light appeared over the pyramid in the Undercroft. So the next objective the community tasked themselves with was to find out what this light meant, and eventually they did. What turning the clock to 9:35 and activating this light did was it made it possible to teleport into a new secret room. But the method to teleport to said room was very random. Basically, you would wall run on some plates in the Undercroft and pray that you were teleported. And if you were, you had a short time in this new room to find out why you were there. And what players found was a plunger, ready for pickup. So after hours of messing with the clock tower and hours of trying to find out how to teleport to this room, all they had to show for it was a plunger. So they started trying to find out what this plunger was for, but little did we know that this was all a waste of time. As we now know, this plunger has no relation to the main Easter egg quest, but it kept players busy for most of day 2. Once players got this plunger, they searched the map for things that might need unclogged or whacked with this melee weapon. And again, this was a waste of time, as we now know this plunger has no relevance to the main Easter egg quest. But when hunting for an Easter egg, you must explore all options because you never know what's going to be next. So after many hours spent with a clock tower, a hidden room, and this plunger, the community was lost until they found it. They found the wisps. Wisps, in my opinion, is the first actual step in this Easter egg. Yes, you need the upgraded bow for every person in the game, and yes, you need the DG4s, but those aren't exactly steps in the Easter egg. They're more just gameplay features that you need if you do want to do the Easter egg. After many hours of plungering things around the map, someone decided to shoot the coils on the teleporter with the Wrath of the Ancients. Now, while I do not know who discovered this first, I do know it happened on day 2, and I do know that someone via chat or donation told Noah J to do this, and once he did, you heard the noise.
What the hell?
Did you guys hear
Yeah,
that?
what was that noise? Yeah, what was that?
What was that?
This apothecary growl had indicated that a glowing blue wisp had now spawned in one of many locations around the map, and you had a time limit to find and then shoot this glowing wisp with, and only with, an upgraded bow to move it to a new location, and if you didn't shoot it in time, you'd have to wait until the next round to hunt for this wisp again. So after a couple of rounds searching for this wisp, Noah J's team shot the wisp 4 times, and what they found is that the teleporter had changed, and when all 4 players entered and used this teleporter, it took them to the next step. By shooting those wisps, the teleporter would change and take you back in time, and while back in time, you would get to witness Dr. Groff and get a code from a safe, as well as grab many other pickups used for steps later in the Easter egg. But this was the end of day 2 for many. As this step was discovered, it was getting late, so they decided to call it, and many like myself would go to bed and watch more tomorrow. And day 3 would be the day that everyone in the community would remember forever.
And I will see all of you guys tomorrow.
Shooting down a rocket, summoning a keeper, teleporting the Moon MPD in the first ever Zombies boss fight. This was what was in store for us day 3, the final day of this hunt. A team made up of Noah J456, Mr. Raffle Waffles, Reed Austin, and Money Talk 7114 would make history and be the first team in the world to beat this Easter egg and give the community one of the most exciting moments in Zombies history. But before we talk about that, I just want to give a quick shout to anyone who participated in this Easter egg hunt, as it was a large community effort and that should be recognized. So GG's to all the teams and players who helped get the Easter egg progress to where it was here. But anyways, day 3 was a sprint to the finish. This team, who I will refer to as Team Noah from this point on, absolutely smashed this Easter egg, making more progress on it in a few hours than the previous 2 days combined. And I think the most significant parts of day 3 are the world's first boss fight and the moon cutscene. So what I'm going to do is try to get to that point as quickly as possible without missing all the details that led up to that, because those are the 2 things I want to talk about the most. So it's time to speedrun through day 3.
Here we go.
So after teleporting to the Groff room via Wisp step from day 2, there would be a code you would retrieve from the safe, as well as a soul canister and fuses lying around the room as pickups. So once you had run out of time in this Groff room, you would teleport back to the present, put those fuses from the room into the death ray, switch the death ray to protect, and enter the code from the safe into this console. Once the code was entered correctly, you would go into the safe room again, but this time the safe would be open, and in this safe there would be a floppy disk to pick up and enter into that console from earlier, as well as 2 pieces from the death ray that you would place on each side of the death ray to weaponize it. Next, you would switch the death ray from protect to destroy, do Samantha Says on 2 consoles around the map, hold X or square on this green button, and bam, Dempsey 1.0 back on Earth. But wait, force field on Dempsey bad. Go zap zap. So next you need to pick up the build device from the Dempsey crash wreckage. Next up was the end of round, do the Wisp step again, and teleport back to the Groff room, but Groff room different this time. Groff now go bye bye, so in bye bye Groff room, hold X on big bad zombie book. A crate would open with the keeper slab, and bam, pick it up, you're done with the bye bye Groff room. Take the slab, put it on the wall, and then insert that several device into this coffin to summon the Mr. Keeper Ghost Man. Now, Mr. Keeper Ghost Man is hungry, so what players did was they would follow him around the map to all these keeper slabs in different locations. You would feed him souls from all the upgraded bows until he was full, and he became just Mr. Keeper Man, no more Ghost. So Mr. Keeper Man went into the Undercroft, teleported to the moon, brought back to MPD, and you would fix it with that soul canister from the Groff room. But Mr. Keeper Man isn't just Mr. Keeper Man anymore. Now he's Big Bad Mr. Keeper Man because that trip to the moon made him corrupt. So that brings me to the end of the speed run, as that quickly summarizes the events of day 3 that led up to the boss fight. All of these steps I just speedran over were really great to watch, and like I said, it was a crazy couple of hours watching Team Noah get all this done. And before we talk about the boss fight, you need to keep in mind that there had never been a boss fight in Zombies before, so we had no idea what this was, and neither did Team Noah. So as they figured out how to enter this boss fight using the DG4s, they didn't even know it was a boss fight. This was completely new to Zombies, and it kicked their butts. They all died. So what this meant was the entire Zombies community had now seen that there was a boss fight and that this boss could wipe an entire team out with one hit, and it was madness. Now that everyone had watched Team Noah get to this boss, the race to world's first got real. It became who could beat this boss first. Somehow, after getting in and dying, Team Noah still managed to pull off the first boss fight victory. After they all died the first time, they jumped back into a game, got set up with the bows as fast as possible, did all the steps again, and entered the boss fight once again. And this fight was intense. Pressure was on. They knew if they failed, they would lose world's first, so they had to jump in and just figure things out. The fight was long and the fight was stressful, and even today, rewatching for this video, it still makes me anxious, as many of them died and lost all their perks. So not only did they have to figure out how this boss worked, they had to avoid all the skeletons, flying heads, dogs, volcanoes, and the wipe mechanic with no perks. Once they figured out how to do damage by placing the DG4s under the boss as he did his lightning wipe mechanic that they got killed by earlier, they unloaded their bows into him and finished their first damage phase. This rewarded them with a max ammo, and they wouldn't need it as it was time for the Panzers. The mechanic to damage the boss was the same every time. Stun him with the DG4, shoot his chest, and repeat. But after every damage phase, you would get a huge wave of Panzers that you would have to defeat before you could shoot at the boss again. And it's worth mentioning that at the time, Panzer's flamethrowers would stun you out of your sprint, so they were lethal. But against all odds, Team Noah defeated the Panzers and damaged the boss again and again until they won. Now this was so awesome to watch live. The reason I've been referencing Noah so much for this video, and the reason this video is mainly from my perspective, not exactly the broader community, is because I watched Noah get this first, as many other people were watching him too. So imagine you're in Noah's or any of the world's first team members' streams. You just got to witness the first ever Zombies boss fight and the first team to ever beat it. There was no way it could have gotten any better than what the zombie community just watched, but it did.
Oh, I put it here. I put it here. Computer. Come over.
Where?
Simon says computer.
30 seconds to impact.
Oh god. Oh god.
It said 30 seconds to impact.
What?
No, what the fuck did you do, bro?
Oh my god, run!
No, what did you do?
Go to
Whoa!
Dempsey. Go to
Whoa!
Dempsey. You are falling of it.
Go to Dempsey.
Oh my god.
What?
Holy!
And my own
I'm missing the sit.
will not prevent the advancement
What?
of our
Shh,
cause.
shh.
You have stopped nothing.
Holy shit! Oh my god!
What?
What?
The road is long and dark, but I know where we are going. We will complete our mission.
Treyarch blew up the freaking moon and gave us one of the greatest cutscenes ever to end off this Easter egg and set up the Black Ops 3 DLC season right. This was the best DLC 1 experience they could have ever done. To this day, it is remembered as a legendary moment for the Zombies community, as well as a legendary map. The Eisendrache Easter eggs is one of the best flowing and well done Easter eggs ever made, and watching it get discovered live was an experience that will probably never be matched for me personally and many others. Eisendrache and Black Ops 3 Zombies in general is an experience that the Zombies community only really remembers as positive, but I hope you enjoyed this video. Once again, this was a long one, so here's another cookie to add to your collection. Thank you so much for watching, and if you were there for the live Easter egg hunt, let me know in the comments, and let me know your favorite Black Ops 3 Zombies live stream moment for many YouTubers, whether it be the Easter egg hunts or something completely different. But that's all from me. Thanks again for your time. I've been Multiple Muffins. Peace.